I, 30F, got divorced from my husband Sebastian, 32M, 3 years ago. Our marriage lasted for 6 years, and during that time my sister Helen, 27F, was very close to both of us. Even after our divorce, she maintained her relationship with Sebastian because, according to her, she couldn't just stop talking to someone who was like a brother to her for 6 years. I met Sebastian during my second year of college. We had a few classes together and ended up working on several group projects. He was always kind, funny, and incredibly smart. What started as study sessions slowly turned into coffee dates, and before I knew it, we were dating. Helen was in her first year at the same college, and she instantly clicked with Sebastian. They shared similar interests in movies and music, and she often joined us for study sessions. After graduation, Sebastian got a job at a tech company while I started working as a marketing manager. We dated for 2 more years before getting married. It was a beautiful small ceremony with just family and close friends. Helen was my maid of honor, and she gave the most touching speech about how Sebastian wasn't just gaining a wife, but she was gaining a brother too. The first few years of our marriage were perfect. We bought a small house, adopted a dog, and started planning our future together. Helen was always around, joining us for weekly dinner nights or weekend movie marathons. She even had her own key to our house and would often crash on our couch after late study sessions at the library nearby. The backstory of my divorce with Sebastian is pretty complicated. We were always a happy couple and never had any major issues. I remember our last anniversary before things started going wrong. Sebastian surprised me with a romantic dinner he cooked himself, something he'd been learning secretly for weeks. Helen had helped him plan everything, from the menu to the decorations. Things started going downhill when Sebastian got promoted at his job. He had been working really hard for this promotion, often staying late at the office and taking on extra projects. I supported him completely because I knew how much it meant to him. When he finally got it, we were all thrilled. Helen threw a surprise party for him at our house, inviting all our friends and family. But the new role required him to travel a lot, which meant he had to stay away from home for weeks. The first few trips weren't too bad. We would video call every night, and he'd always bring back little souvenirs from wherever he went. But gradually, the calls became shorter and less frequent. He'd say he was tired or had early meetings. Even when he was home, he was either too exhausted or busy with work calls. I tried talking to him about this multiple times. I suggested maybe he could request fewer trips, or we could try to plan our schedules better so we could spend more time together when he was home. But he always brushed it off, saying it was temporary and things would get better once he settled into his new role. But they never did. Instead, he started getting more distant. He stopped sharing details about his work trips. Before, he would tell me about the meetings, the people he met, even funny incidents that happened. Now all I got were vague responses. He stopped asking about my day or making plans for the weekends he was home. Even Helen noticed the change, but she said I should give him space and not pressure him. Eventually, I found out through a mutual friend that Sebastian had been spending time with his coworker Tessa during his business trips. They worked in different departments, but her team often collaborated with his on projects. My friend saw them having dinner together multiple times, and apparently they seemed very close. When I confronted him about it, he looked guilty but not surprised, like he had been expecting this conversation. He admitted to having feelings for Tessa but claimed nothing physical had happened between them. He said they connected because she understood his work pressure and ambitions. The way he said it made it clear that he thought I didn't understand these things. That was the breaking point for me. I couldn't stay with someone who had emotionally checked out of our marriage and developed feelings for someone else. We tried couples counseling for a few months, but his heart wasn't in it. He was still traveling, still distant, and probably still meeting Tessa. We got divorced, and it was relatively amicable considering the circumstances. We sold our house and split everything fairly. He even let me keep our dog since he traveled too much to take care of her. Helen was supportive throughout the divorce, but she made it clear that she wanted to stay friends with Sebastian. She said 6 years of friendship couldn't just disappear, and that Sebastian was like family to her. I wasn't happy about it, but I didn't want to control who she could be friends with. After the divorce, I moved into a small house closer to my work. Helen helped me move and spend a lot of time with me during those first few months. She would bring food, watch movies with me, and listen to me cry about my failed marriage. Looking back now, I wonder if she was genuinely trying to help or just keeping tabs on me for Sebastian. Fast forward to last month when I found out that Sebastian and Tessa got engaged. I didn't hear it from him or Helen, but saw it on social media. What hurt more than their engagement was finding out that Helen had been actively helping them get together. Apparently, she had been playing matchmaker between them for the past year. She arranged meetings, gave relationship advice, and even helped Sebastian plan the proposal. When I confronted her about this, she said she just wanted Sebastian to be happy and that I should move on too. She acted like she had done nothing wrong, like helping my ex-husband get together with the woman he left me for was perfectly normal. She even had the nerve to say that since I was already divorced, it shouldn't matter to me who Sebastian marries. I was devastated. My own sister, who saw how much the divorce affected me, who held me while I cried, who knew how betrayed I felt, helped orchestrate this whole thing. I cut off all contact with Helen after this. I blocked her number and social media accounts because I couldn't bear to see her acting like everything was fine. Last week our mom called me saying Helen's landlord sold her building and she needs a place to stay. My house has a spare room and Mom suggested that Helen could stay with me until she finds a new place. I refused immediately. Mom said I was being petty and that Helen is still my sister regardless of what happened. She said family should stick together during tough times. I told Mom that Helen clearly chose Sebastian's happiness over my feelings so she can go stay with him and Tessa. Mom called me heartless and said I was being cruel to my own sister. Helen also reached out through Mom's phone and apologized, saying she never meant to hurt me. She said she just wanted everyone to be happy and didn't think it would affect me this much since I was already divorced from Sebastian. She begged me to let her stay with me as she can't afford most places in our area right now. I still refused. I can't imagine living with someone who betrayed my trust like that. Helen has been posting on social media about how families should forgive each other and how she's hurt that I won't help her when she needs me. Some of our relatives are saying I'm being too harsh and that I should be the bigger person. But I don't think I can forgive her for what she did. Update 1, it's been 2 weeks since my last post and things have gotten more complicated. After I refused to let Helen stay with me, she moved in with our cousin Alex. He was always close to both of us growing up. We spent every summer at his parents' beach house and he was like the brother we never had. When he heard about Helen's housing situation, he offered her his guest room without hesitation. Yesterday Alex called me and what he told me made my blood boil. Apparently Helen had been talking to Sebastian about me even before he started getting close to Tessa. This came out during one of their late-night conversations when Helen had too much to drink and started reminiscing about the past. She told him that I was complaining about his work schedule to everyone and that I was probably going to leave him anyway because I couldn't handle his success. Alex showed me some old messages between him and Helen where she was badmouthing me to our entire family. These messages went back to even before Sebastian's promotion. In one message, she told Alex that I was being selfish for wanting Sebastian to spend more time at home when he was trying to build his career. In another, she suggested that I was holding Sebastian back from accepting additional responsibilities at work because I was insecure about earning less than him. She made it seem like I was jealous of Sebastian's success and that I pushed him away with my constant complaints. She painted me as this nagging wife who couldn't understand ambition. Some messages even showed her telling our cousins that Sebastian deserved someone more understanding like Tessa who wouldn't make him feel guilty about working hard. The worst part was finding out that Helen had been hanging out with Tessa even before Sebastian admitted to having feelings for her. They met at a company party where Helen was Sebastian's +1 because I had to work late that night. According to Alex, Helen and Tessa hit it off immediately and started meeting for coffee regularly. She knew about their growing closeness but never told me. Instead, she encouraged their meetings by inviting Tessa to family gatherings when Sebastian was in town, knowing I wouldn't be there because of my work schedule. When I thought about it, it all made sense. Helen would often suggest I skip family dinners when I was tired from work, saying I should rest. Now I realize she was creating opportunities for Sebastian and Tessa to spend time together without me around. She would tell me stories about these gatherings but conveniently leave out Tessa's presence. Alex said he felt guilty for keeping quiet all this time. He showed me more messages where Helen would orchestrate these meetings. She would plan family events around Sebastian's travel schedule and deliberately schedule them when she knew I had work commitments. When other family members asked about my absence, she would tell them I was too busy with work to make time for family. When I confronted Helen about this, she broke down and admitted everything. But her confession only made things worse. She said she always looked up to Sebastian and thought I was lucky to have him. Then she dropped another bombshell. She had a crush on him in college before he started dating me but never told anyone. She claimed this didn't influence her actions, but I find that hard to believe now. She confessed that she didn't actively try to break up our marriage, but she didn't stop it from falling apart either because deep down she thought Sebastian deserved better. She said she saw how perfect Tessa was for Sebastian and couldn't help but want them to be happy together. When I asked her about all the times she comforted me during my divorce, she just looked away and said she convinced herself she was doing the right thing. Mom called me again yesterday after talking to Helen. She was singing a different tune this time, saying Helen was just young and confused and that she deserves another chance. She tried to justify Helen's actions by saying she probably didn't realize the impact of what she was doing. But I can't get past the fact that my own sister wanted my marriage to fail. The more I think about it, the more signs I remember missing. How Helen would always take Sebastian's side in our small arguments. How she would brush off my concerns about his distance during his work trips. How she would tell me I was overthinking things when I mentioned Sebastian seemed different after meeting Tessa. I blocked Helen on everything and told Mom to stop trying to fix things between us. I'm done pretending we can go back to being close sisters after this. Some family members are still saying I'm being too harsh, but others who found out what Helen did are now understanding my side. Alex and a few other cousins have cut contact with Helen too. Helen posted a long apology on social media saying she regrets everything and wishes she could take it all back. She wrote about how she let her childhood crush cloud her judgment and how she realizes now that she hurt me deeply. But it's too little too late. Her actions weren't just mistakes made by a confused young woman, they were calculated moves to undermine my marriage while pretending to support me. Alex says Helen is miserable now that most of our cousins know what she did. She's been trying to explain herself to everyone, but no one wants to hear her excuses. Even Mom has stopped defending her as strongly after seeing the messages Alex showed us. But honestly, I don't care how Helen feels anymore. She had years to come clean or stop what she was doing, but she chose to keep manipulating everyone around her instead. Update 2. A month has passed since my last update, and I discovered something that made everything make more sense. Last week I ran into Tessa's sister Kate at a coffee shop. I usually avoid places near Sebastian's office, but I had a meeting nearby and needed caffeine. Kate recognized me immediately and surprisingly wanted to talk. I was hesitant at first but agreed because she seemed genuinely upset about something. What she told me left me shocked. According to Kate, Helen had been telling Tessa a completely different story about my marriage with Sebastian. From the very beginning, Helen had painted me as the villain in their love story. She told Tessa that I was controlling and emotionally manipulative towards Sebastian. She made up stories about how I tried to stop Sebastian from taking the promotion and that I threw tantrums whenever he had to travel. Helen apparently told Tessa that I would guilt-trip Sebastian about his work trips by calling him constantly and demanding he come home early. She claimed I would start fights with him over video calls when he was away, making him stressed before important meetings. None of this was true. I was always supportive of his career and only wanted better communication between us. Kate revealed that Helen would tell Tessa about fights between Sebastian and me that never happened. She invented stories about me threatening to leave Sebastian if he didn't choose between me and his career. Helen convinced Tessa that she was helping Sebastian escape an unhappy marriage. She told Tessa that Sebastian was too good of a person to leave on his own, so he needed someone to help him realize he deserved better. The worst part was learning how Helen manipulated Tessa's feelings. She would tell Tessa about how Sebastian's face lit up whenever he talked about her, and how different he was with her compared to me. Helen fed Tessa's guilt about their growing closeness by assuring her that she wasn't doing anything wrong because Sebastian was already emotionally checked out of our marriage, thanks to Helen's lies about my behavior. Kate apologized for believing these lies and said she only found out the truth recently when she overheard Helen bragging to someone about how she masterfully handled the whole situation. Helen was at a party, slightly drunk, and was telling someone how proud she was of orchestrating everything so perfectly that no one suspected her involvement until it was too late. I was furious and wanted to confront Helen immediately, but Kate suggested something better. She helped me gather proof of all Helen's lies, including screenshots of her conversations with Tessa where she made up stories about me. There were messages where Helen told Tessa that I had always been jealous of her brother's success, how I tried to control every aspect of his life, and how much happier he seemed after spending time with her. Kate also showed me older messages where Helen would update Tessa about fights between Sebastian and me that never happened. She would make up these elaborate stories about me being unreasonable and Sebastian being the patient, suffering husband. All this time I thought Tessa was just the other woman, but she had been manipulated into believing she was saving Sebastian from a toxic marriage. I sent all these screenshots to our entire family group chat without any comment. Helen immediately started calling and messaging me, but I ignored her. The family chat exploded with reactions. Some relatives who had been defending Helen were now apologizing to me. Others were expressing their shock and disappointment in her behavior. Mom finally saw Helen's true colors and apologized for pressuring me to forgive her. She called me crying, saying she had no idea how calculated and manipulative Helen had been. Even Sebastian reached out and said he had no idea about Helen's lies. He apologized for everything and admitted that Helen's stories had influenced his perspective of our marriage problems. But honestly, his apology meant nothing to me anymore. He chose to believe lies about his wife of 6 years instead of talking to me directly. Helen tried to post another apology on social media, but this time no one was buying it. She wrote about how she got carried away trying to help everyone be happy and made some wrong choices. But thanks to Kate's revelations, everyone now knew that Helen hadn't just made some mistakes, she had deliberately created problems in my marriage and then played innocent while watching it fall apart. People started calling her out in the comments, sharing their disappointment and anger. Some even shared their own experiences of times when Helen had tried to manipulate situations in the past. She ended up deleting all her social media accounts after the backlash became too much. Last I heard from Alex, she's been staying in her room most days, avoiding family calls and messages. Update 3. It's been 7 months since everything happened and I'm finally at peace with how things turned out. Helen eventually moved to another city after most of our family cut contact with her. She got a job offer in Seattle and took it, probably because staying around became too difficult when everyone knew what she had done. She still tries to reach out through different numbers, but I blocked them all. Last month she showed up at my house unannounced at 9 p.m. I almost didn't recognize her at first. She looked different, tired and less put together than her usual self. She claimed she was getting therapy and wanted to make amends. She started crying on my doorstep about how much she misses her big sister and how therapy made her realize the extent of damage she caused. I listened to her apology without interrupting. She talked about how she had been working through her issues in therapy, about her unresolved feelings for Sebastian that she should have dealt with years ago, and how she regrets letting those feelings drive her to hurt me. She said she understood if I couldn't forgive her, but she needed me to know how sorry she was. I waited until she finished and told her that while I'm glad she's getting help, I couldn't forgive her. The trust she broke wasn't just about Sebastian, it was about years of manipulation and lies. I told her she should have thought about missing her sister before she spent years deliberately trying to ruin my marriage. She left crying but keeps sending letters through Mom. Mom doesn't pressure me anymore about forgiving Helen but forwards the letters saying it's my choice what to do with them. I haven't opened any of them. They sit in a drawer untouched because I know reading them will only bring back painful memories. Alex says Helen asks about me whenever she calls him, but he respects my decision to keep my distance. Sebastian and Tessa postponed their wedding after everything came out. The scandal affected Tessa's relationship with her own family too, especially Kate, who felt betrayed by Tessa's part in everything. Recently I heard they got married in a small ceremony in Hawaii. Helen wasn't invited, which gives me some satisfaction. Apparently Tessa reached out to apologize too, but I ignored her message. I've started dating again and met someone who makes me happy. He knows about everything that happened and understands why family gatherings might be complicated. Some relatives still bring up Helen, especially during holidays. They say things like she's still your sister and family is family, but I've learned that sharing blood doesn't give anyone the right to betray you. Last week Mom mentioned that Helen is engaged to someone she met in Seattle. She probably thought this news would make me happy, thinking Helen had finally moved on from her feelings for Sebastian. But honestly, I felt nothing. The sister I grew up with, the one I shared secrets with and trusted completely, died the day I found out about her betrayal. Some relatives still think I should forgive Helen, saying she's changed and deserves another chance. But I'm done sacrificing my peace for family bonds. I spent too many years being manipulated while thinking I had a supportive sister by my side. Sometimes cutting off toxic family members is the best thing you can do for yourself, even if others don't understand your decision. I've finally found peace in my life without Helen's drama, and I plan to keep it that way.